No, no, please. It's all I've got left.
Let go. This is station property.
No, it's my mop.
Let's go. Go, you idiot.
That's my mop.
Not anymore, buddy.
Hey, are you all right?
It's just not fair.
Come on, forget about it. It's only a mop.
Only a mop. Only a mop. You don't understand. That mop was given to me for my birthday when I was 8 years old. We've never been apart.
This is Tim.
This is Jonathan.
And this is The Average.
Oh, yeah.
Today we are talking UHF from 1989, starring everybody's favorite Weird Al Yankovic.
Parody master.
So this is another one of Jonathan's recommendations. I have always wanted to see it, just for some reason never have. And this was the perfect motivation to get in there and get that viewing done. So let's dive into this. I'll break down our plot and we'll start off with our scores. So in UHF, we follow the misadventures of George Newman, played by the king of Cork himself, Weird Al Yankovic. George is a down-on-his-luck dreamer who stumbles into the role of a lifetime when he's put in charge of a failing UHF television station. Armed with nothing but his imagination and a whole lot of duct tape, George transforms Channel 62 into a haven of hilarity, churning out shows that are as absurd as they are entertaining. From Stanley Spadowski's Clubhouse, where janitor-turned-host Stanley, played brilliantly by Michael Richards, charms audiences with his antics, to my personal favorite, Wheel of Fish, a game show that's fishier than a seafood market on a hot day. George's programming choices are pure gold, if gold were covered in cheese and sprayed with silly string. But George's rise to fame isn't without its hurdles. He's got to contend with rival network channel 8, led by conniving RJ Fletcher, played with the delicious villainy by Kevin McCarthy, who will stop at nothing to crush Channel 62 and claim victory in the ratings war. Can George and his ragtag team of misfits outwit RJ and save their beloved station? Or will Channel 62 go down in flames faster than a marshmallow in a bonfire? With its outrageous humor, infectious energy, and catchy tunes, courtesy of Weird Al himself, UHF is a laugh riot from start to finish. So grab your spatula hat, crank up the accordion, and prepare for this ride as we break down UHF and tell you what we thought.
All right. So, getting into it.
I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah. So, starting out with story, the plot situation. How unique, compelling, and original is the story of what we watched? With this movie, it is a lot of crazy hilarity, a lot of slapstick, as well as the signature Weird Al style of parody, with not just the ideas for the shows and everything, but also like some of his actual songs and like music videos that he's made that are incorporated into the film as well. But for the main part of it, you know, you've got this whole rivalry situation. As you've already stated, you know, you've got your guy who's down on his luck, hating life, and gets this opportunity to run this station, and through just happenstance of letting things go their own way while feeling kind of bummed about the situation with the station and how it's failing, it just somehow draws this local crowd. Everyone in the area becomes huge fans of it, you know, and you meet a whole wide cast of characters, a lot of great cameos, people who were really popular at the time in the late 80s. So there's a lot of awesome to see and a lot of creativity with like how they play out the story with, their development and the rivalry with the stations, and then, the resolution to the entire thing, and just all the bizarre stuff that you see in it. It's definitely written to be like mass comedy, but in like a really fantastic way.
Yeah, I like I said, I've never seen this movie, and I do. So the plot itself is fairly thin. It's not. It's kind of the underdog story. It's an underdog television station going up against the big, well-funded Titan television station, and they're going to do what they do best, and that rise to popularity amongst their people. And I think that's what I really liked about it. He was making content that resonated with his community, and then they rallied around that. And I didn't think the story super original, but it was the perfect backbone to what they do, to what Weird Al does in this film. It was, so I gave the score for the story a 3. I thought it was a good story, good premise to kind of lay the foundation for the crazy that unfolds in this film.
Agreed. I was pretty solid on the 3. It was fun for the time with a lot of different films that you were seeing. There was a lot of sci-fi, a lot of different like gimmick films, and there was a lot of B films on the scene that were kind of big also at the time and throughout the late 80s. With a lot of the underdog stories, especially like being that kind of John Hughes film era kind of time. So there's a lot of underdog stories, that were going out around that time. So yep. I think 3 is pretty comfortable for that.
Yeah. And there's something about the underdog story that resonates with people, and it always has and always will. So the character of George Newman, that's, I didn't think there was a lot of growth for George Newman, and you can persuade me otherwise, because he kind of is, from the opening scene, it's established that he's kind of, I don't want to say a dreamer, but he's an envisionary. He's always thinking, he's creative, and flipping burgers just isn't doing it for him. And so what he needed was an outlet for that creativity. And becoming the manager of the station provided that outlet for him. And so I didn't really see a character arc out of him, even though he's a great character. Who I did see the character arc out of was Stanley, who starts as just this janitor, though I spaced on what his job was. He starts as the janitor, and he is... You see, I don't know if it's just because I'm more familiar with Kramer, but he's, you can't help but see Kramer just totally unhinged in the character of Stanley.
Absolutely.
He's nuts. But he grows throughout the movie to have this like sense of confidence that he was just this humble janitor who is super attached to his mop that has been with him since he was 8 years old. And I thought there was something simple and childish and sad about that. And then he's given this chance to be himself, and the people love it, and it resonates with him. And he grows to be like Weird Al. George might be the manager, but Stanley is the face of this television network. So he has that character arc, that growth throughout the film, that it's what I look for. And honestly, I would have a hard time if I go back and look at this. I know Weird Al's the main character, but I think there's an argument that Stanley is.
Okay. And what would you score?
So the character of George, I didn't think had much of an arc. So I gave him a 3. If I'm giving it for him, 3. If I'm bringing in Stanley, which I am, I got to bring it up to a 4. Because Stanley is, I don't know, maybe that's the character that I resonated with. Maybe somebody else resonates with the George. But Stanley stood out to me, and I loved his arc and seeing him grow confident to the guy who's mopping and like walks into his boss's office kind of like a beat puppy. He's still goofy, but at the beginning when we first see him, and then at the end of this, he's like at the microphone leading the rally and getting all that funding together, and he's leading the charge. And I'm like, I love that. I love that.
Okay. Go see for me. Okay. Yeah. This is going to be maybe a bit out there and kind of outside my normal because I'm thinking about multiple characters in the film. I go with a 5, which, like I said, that's not normal for me. I'd never normally would do that. But because, like I said, with Stanley, of course, you see him, the lowly janitor guy, always getting picked on, hassled, kicked around, being the doormat, at the corporate station, gets busted out, George gives him a chance to work at UHF, and then it all just goes crazy from there, and he blows up huge, becomes this huge sensation, becomes this loved TV personality, all while still being the same innocent but fun and humble character he is, And that's fantastic, I think. And him to be, like you said, as the face of the station and being so widely recognized, and him still just being himself the entire time, but still getting this better sense of importance and of having more of an impact in what he normally would in life. I think it's fantastic. And then with George, even though he's portrayed as the main character, you've got your down and out lackadaisical guy who everyone just thinks is a fool and doesn't take anything seriously. And he doesn't really, he just kind of half-assing his shit until he figures out something he wants to do, until he gets that opportunity from his aunt because his uncle went in the station in a poker game, which crazy but funny. And then finally, trying to see how hard it is to do this, facing all these challenges and hurdles and trying to figure out how to keep the station afloat. And then Stanley busting out with his magic out of nowhere while they're sitting bummed at a bar because they think that nothing's going to work. But then, getting into the zone with it and then letting those creative juices flowing and coming up with all these amazing show ideas and making the station so hugely popular, and then becoming the hero at the end, along with Stanley, as it were, to finally triumph over the major station, all that syndicate, syndicated news and stuff. Then not just him. And then there's his girlfriend, played by Victoria Jackson. I had such a crush on her in the 80s too for a little while. I was like, yeah, Victoria Jackson, sweet. Loved her on SNL.
Okay. I was trying to figure out where I had seen her before because typically for listeners out there, for Jonathan, if it's a movie I haven't seen before, I try to go in with zero knowledge of it or just what I already know. I don't look it up until after my first viewing. So I really had no idea who was in this movie. I was surprised by Kramer being in it. I didn't know who this was. And when I saw her, I was like, she looks super familiar. But I still don't know what I would see her in as I'm looking at her list right now.
Like I said, she was a big part of SNL in the 90s.
Okay.
That was where I knew her primarily before actually seeing you at UHF when I was little. But
she was in the X-Files.
Oh yeah, she's done a lot of different random stuff. But with her character, being the girlfriend, she sees that George keeps failing and failing and failing, losing job after job, and she's starting to doubt her relationship with him and that connection. And still tries to hold on in hopes that, he'll build himself up and realize his potential, because, as you see with the dinner scene and everything, he just goofs off too much and she can't take it seriously. And there's mishaps with the family dinner and everything. And just, she finally, once he starts getting his mojo going, she sees what he can really be and believes more in him, supports that. And that kind of strengthens their relationship. So there's a little bit of an arc there as the growth between them and that relationship. And then
that's fair. I didn't look into it that deeply. I kind of thought she was there as a motivating force, but not as a standout character so much to me. But now that you mention it, but I did love the punchline of her at the end when she comes back and is, I don't remember what she says, but he goes, "I thought you never wanted to see me again." And she goes, "Well, what gave you that idea?" And he goes, "Well, when you said you never wanted to see me again."
Kind of a big teller.
Yeah.
And then from that, you also got like kind of the smaller character development a little bit too, because when George takes over the station, you've got Fran Drescher, who's the receptionist, who dreams big of being a reporter, and really getting on some of that cutting edge news. And with them giving her that opportunity, and with everything she does to help build up the station too, and then finally getting to be in that limelight and getting that spot that she wanted, where she gets to shine and have her own sense of joy in achieving those goals for herself, is pretty cool as well. So, there's lots of little different things going on there. So that's why I kind of gave it a 5. It works for me in that way.
I think that's totally fair. I do think one of the things I was going to say, and it bears saying now, is that there's so much in this movie that I think you could take away something different every watch. So I do think one of the reasons why those things don't stand out to me is that I have now seen it twice. But I do think if I were to keep watching it, and I will, it'll be on again, those things will start to stand out, and some of those subtler storylines will stand out for sure. So I'm going to stick with a 4 for this viewing. Okay. But all right. So the music and sound, this was tough for me. We get an original, at least one, if not a couple original Weird Al songs, which I wanted to say that's a 5 right there. Easy 5. If we get some original Weird Al, we get that music video having to do with the Beverly Hillbillies, and it's computer animation, and it's just weird and out there and great. And the rest of the music, like the actual composed soundtrack for the film, is barely memorable, not rememberable.
Wow. Words? Yeah.
It's been a long week. It's the actual composed music, barely memorable, but it's not distracting. And they do what I ended up liking about it was kind of leaning into those slapstick sounds in the sound design. So a lot of the humor has those weird sound elements that go with slapstick, and it's cleverly designed. And I feel like that is more important in this movie than the composed music.
Yeah, I can agree with that. There's, with all the slapstick comedy that goes on and all the sound effects that go into each set and all the different stuff that's going on, between each action scene and comedy bit, and then the serious moments, and then, rolling back into the comedy again. There's a lot of that goes on. I think it plays well, but yeah, you're right about as far as actual composed, like bits of score, it's not noticeable because, everything's overshadowed by Weird Al parody. It's all Weird Al parody. And so you don't really get much else aside from that. You get the familiarity of the original songs, but it's all just comedy song. So, that makes me kind of, I love Weird Al though. It's like, oh my God, I used to rage so hard about some Weird Al when I was like in middle school and like early junior high. Oh my God. My mom had like one of his cassettes for like Dare to Be Stupid. And then like was having her like begging my mom hard to go get like another album for me and this and that. So like I'm huge on it, but it goes really hard with the parody music, but I still love it. So I gave it a 4.
Okay. I think that's fair. I gave it a 3 just because I thought it was good. I didn't think it was standout. Even I'm sad that even the song that was chosen of Weird Al's is not my favorite of him. I didn't think it was necessarily one of his best songs, but it definitely, there wasn't anything bad about it. But I'm trying to remember, like, I played the crap out of Running with Scissors. Because it had the Saga Begins, the song, the Star Wars song. And in 1999, I loved The Phantom Menace, and I was all about that Saga Begins song. And that's what got me into Weird Al. And I listened to that. And then when he did the White and Nerdy couple of years later.
I'll see, like I said, me growing up in like the 80s and 90s, I got all that prime time cut action. And in the 90s, when he came out with Amish Paradise, holy shit, everyone lost their fucking minds on that shit. Like, we were rocking that shit so hard. And man, cassettes. I think my mom had a vinyl record for one of his albums. I don't remember. But I had like 4 cassettes of his, dude. Like, it was all about it. And then I would go out and find more and more. And then I went and got his first album, where he got really popular because of songs like another one, Rides the Bus, that Queen parody. It was epic, epic song. Fucking epic.
I'm trying to find the album that, and I'll get to it in the It Factor part. That kind of brought him back in the 90s. I think it was the Food album. Maybe it's either the Food album or Alapalooza, but either way.
I was always a fan of the polka mixes. I like the polka mixes a lot. I always was huge of the polka mixes.
All right. So the next one, editing and special effects. We're breezing right along on this because I feel like most of this movie is
practical effects.
Just enjoyment. The enjoyment factor on this one. Editing and special effects, it's nothing to write home about, but the special effects are also played for humor in this film, and I love it so much. From the opening scene that parodies Raiders of the Lost Ark, and just everything about that scene when he cracks the whip and the guy's arm falls off. Hilarious. Like, such an extreme reaction. I think it's a great effect. It doesn't look real. It's played for humor. And so that makes it great. The other great one that is fantastic is early on when he's taken over the network and he's creating the programming, and he has the high school woodshop teacher in for Town Talk. And the high school woodshop is played brilliantly as just this weirdo, but he saws his thumb off and he's just spraying blood all over. It's like, oh.
Just call me Mr. Butterfingers.
Like, it's spraying blood. He lost a thumb. It doesn't look real, but it looks funny. It's played so well. And that is, honestly, as I'm talking about it now, I could probably raise the score on editing because a lot of these are sight gags. There's a number of sight gags in this film that you have to edit. You have to edit that precisely to get it to land. And so part of me is thinking, like, maybe I have a 3, but maybe it's a 4. I'm going to stay with 3, but there's a ton of sight gags, a ton of practical effects for comedy. Even when he gets the Raiders of the Lost Ark stone rolls over him and he's smashed into the pavement. Like, it's hilarious.
Pancake and it's a flat stand.
Yeah, it's a little bit gross, but it's great.
Yeah, I'm dealing with a 3 on the editing special effects too. There's a lot of like just that practical sight gag stuff you were talking about. But towards the end though, you get more of that graphic, more special effects stuff with the kind of claymation scene with the whole alien thing from the scientist guy that he first met at the station. Yeah. It turned out to be from outer space and all the stuff that went on there. But one of the things I really liked though was during Stanley's Playhouse. He's got the kid sitting there and he turns the hose on him. He's like, "Are you ready?" Yes. Kid's like, and then the Rambo, his whole Rambo situation, man, when he had like the puffed up specs and everything. Like, that was so cool. Man, he was tripping hard in that part.
The Rambo scene, I was dying at. Just because my wife doesn't watch action movies because she says all they are things exploding. And that is exactly what the Rambo scene is. Yeah. He's just firing the gun at everything and everything is exploding, and it's probably 30 seconds of straight explosions, and it's hilarious. And the little skin suit he's wearing actually looks really good.
It does.
But it's played for comedy, and it's just great. I love that. So yeah, did you say your score?
Oh yeah, I went with 3 on that. So much prop action.
Yes. And this is where I get into what I think is the brilliance of this movie, the script. So all of these gags, so this movie, I said the plot was fairly thin because it's Weird Al reviving a local TV station and rallying the people to overtake the one that doesn't care about them. But it's cut with all of the programming that he is doing for this show or for his network. And I said, where Wheel of Fish is an episode. He has Raoul's Wild Kingdom, and Raoul somehow has
that
a TV
dude.
show.
Oh my God. So many animals in that one little apartment.
Hey man, this is Raul Hernandez and welcome to Raul's Wild Kingdom, coming to you live from my apartment.
Where did you find this guy?
Me? I thought you hired him.
For those of you just joined,
that scene, you mentioned the fire hose, but you just found the marble and the oatmeal and the prizes to drink from a fire hose. Or another favorite is Conan the Librarian.
Dude.
Never before in the history of motion pictures has there been a screen presence so commanding, so powerful, so deadly. He's Conan the Librarian.
I'm sorry, these books are a little overdue.
Conan the Librarian. Tonight, only on U62.
When he splits that teenager in half because he had some late books, it's so good. And the commercial for, is it Spatula Kingdom?
Spatula City, I think.
Spatula City, a whole store for all your spatula needs. Or
Gandhi
the
2.
commercial.
Gandhi 2.
Yes, I was going to say the commercial.
Hardcore in the
Gandhi
streets,
2.
man. Yeah.
It's
no more passive aggressive shit.
Yes.
No more pacifist, I mean.
Brilliant. Yeah, no more pacifist. I think the humor in this movie, from the sight gags, it's got physical comedy. It's got sight gags that are done in film. So like a person will say something in a scene and then it cuts to the punchline. And it's done really well. And they've got puns. They've got parody. They've got just about every form of comedy. Yeah. Just about every form of comedy. And it's a bunch of little skits. I think it's brilliant. I gave it a 5. Like, to write all of this and put it in. And I can see, like, I am choosing to put maybe what some people might think are elements of the story or the character or so on. I'm putting it all in with the script because it was written so well. And it was written in that Weird Al style of, you listen to his music for the humor, for the cleverness. And this movie does all of those things. It's just not music. And I think that's why the first time I was kind of shocked. I thought there would be more Weird Al music, and it's not. This is Weird Al parodying everything else that isn't music. And he's parodying commercials. The car salesman who
God, that dude
is going to beat a baby seal if you like, it's funny.
Which is a huge throw to really bizarre car commercials that were on the air like that at the time across the country in all kinds of places, man. There was a lot of bizarre commercials back in those days. So like he made great parody of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. So that's why I give it a 5. There's not particular depth at all in the story itself. Well, there is some depth. There's more than you expect. While it's not Gone with the Wind in the story, it is super cleverly written. It is Weird Al through and through on the script, and I love it. From his Twinkie hot dog covered in cheese whiz.
It's so gross. Oh, it's so gross. Oh.
It's great. I gave it a 5. I thought the script was fantastic.
See, I was at a 3, and now you've convinced me to change it to a 4. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to change it from 3 to a 4. Yeah, we're going 4.
I'm going to update my spreadsheet.
Thank you. Yeah, you sold me.
Before we jump into the next category, I want to tell you a little bit about Zencastr. When I was preparing for our 13 Nights of Halloween series, I was really searching for a way to streamline the process. I wanted a professional looking setup to invite our guests to. I wanted quality audio and video recording, and I wanted the easiest way to release the episodes to as broad of an audience as possible. This is how I landed on Zencastr. It is now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Just log in using your browser and start recording a high quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. And speaking of audio quality, have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you are thinking of starting your own podcast or just want to streamline what you are already doing, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code AVERAGECUSTOMER and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. That's average customer, one word. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all of my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. So let's dive into the next category. I will say I was surprised by Weird Al's acting. I thought he would be worse, to be honest. I should not have been surprised.
As much parody and videos he's done, kind of lends to it.
I think I was just surprised that he didn't do much more as far as movies go after this.
I know, right?
So I thought it was probably because he sucked, but he doesn't. He's not bad. The acting, I gave it a good across the board because it's a 3. Because everybody is playing kind of a campy caricature of their character, and it's done really well. So I gave it a good. The acting didn't stand out for me, but it was not. I was never like, ooh, that was bad. But I enjoyed the acting more than I thought I would, honestly.
Okay, well, I went with a 4 on it. I thought there were some great portrayals in there, especially with Michael Richards, how he played Stanley. Just being that affable goof kind of janitor guy. Yeah. I think he played that role fantastically. Weird Al as George, just being that aloof, creative dreamer guy, just kind of lends to the whole aspect of him as an artist within the parody world. But at the same time, you also had a lot of serious characters. People who They seemed, the way they acted it out seemed reasonable for the role, despite the comedy and the shtick. Like the girlfriend, even Fran Drescher as the reporter. RJ, as the Channel 8 head. I like the way they portrayed those characters, and I think they did it in a fun way while still having that underlying serious tone with the rest of like the B members of the cast. His aunt and uncle, and like Mr. Kim from the karate school. A lot of those other little side characters, they had some fun aspects to them that kind of gave it more depth to the story, and then just like how they all interacted in general, especially when it came to like running the station, and even his own best friend. What was his name? David Bowe. He's more of a small-time actor. He's still been in a lot of stuff throughout the 80s and part of the 90s. But, he was good as like that serious friend who was still trying to help be supportive and trying to build something with him. So I feel pretty comfortable with a 4 on it because of like just, the way they did it, in it being a comedy film with still those underlying serious tones. I think it worked well.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're on to the direction. The direction it's similar to the editing and special effects for me. It does the job. It does it well. A lot of the skillful direction comes in delivering the comedy. So they do that really well. There's nothing really stand out. There's no like The brilliant shots as far as artsy goes don't exist. But the brilliant shots as far as comedy goes are nearly every scene. So it's cleverly done. It's cleverly constructed. It's a little jarring on when they will put in like a random commercial. It can be a little jarring. Like the spatula commercial always takes me by surprise the first time. It's just like, but it's done well. It's done well. I gave it a 3 on the direction.
I went same with it. I went 3. It was nothing too extravagant over the top, but it wasn't like shitty B film kind of, cut and paste and all that stuff. I mean, I liked those skit commercial kind of bump ins. Just kind of lent to the whole idea of them, with the whole TV station kind of situation story. Although you can throw you off a little bit. I do agree with that. But then there were some other parts that were just kind of meh to me, like the beginning when they get kicked out of the burger place and old girl like throws them. You get the wide shot of the burger joint. I'm like,
I thought that one was funny.
It was funny. They got tossed by that big girl. Like, dude, like holy cow. But I don't know. It just wasn't anything that really stood out too much for me. Yeah. All
right. The it factor. The it factor for this movie is an interesting one. So this was after my first watch when I kind of go back and I do the research about the film. It didn't do well when it was released. So they were hoping it would kind of be a summer blockbuster, but instead it was out of theaters within a month. And didn't make a ton of money. I don't think it lost money on its theatrical run, but let me double check that. So the budget was $500 million and it grossed worldwide $6 million.
No, not 500 million, 5 million.
5 million. Sorry, 5 million, and it grossed $6 million.
So it came out on top a little bit, but not too much.
It made $1 million. Yeah, but it wasn't well received by critics. It was the most well received private screening of a film from the company at that time.
Okay.
What happened with this movie was the VHS market blew it up. So after this was released, people started watching it on VHS, passing it around. And it was after Weird Al's 1993 album.
Possibly.
But he kind of dipped in popularity after this movie until that 1993 album brought him back. And then this movie blew up and everybody wanted it. VHS copies sold out. They were hard to find. They were selling for way more. And basically since then, the movie has gotten more and more popular over time. So it wasn't popular when it was in theaters. It took about 3 years, and then the popularity for this film skyrocketed. So because of that, because of its initial quote unquote failure or lack of popularity, I gave it a 3. It has an interesting kind of resonance that has grown over time, but at the time of its release wasn't a big deal.
I can say that's fair. For me, I went with a 4 on it because, I mean, nobody else was really doing anything like that with including so much parody and then having like such a parody kind of soundtrack to go with it. I mean, even this movie came out in 89. Like the year before that, Weird Al had done his album Even Worse. That was really big because of the Michael Jackson parody for Beat It. It was Eat It.
Eat It.
And even after UHF, 92, the run Off the Deep End, I had that cassette as well.
Maybe that was the album.
That was the big one because that's when he started parodying Nirvana, and that blew up and kind of put the band back on the scene again. Because he had like a period where he was doing like 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 years a new album kind of situation. You got to take that time to build up, find new material, and the right way to parody stuff. And then Weird Al has always been that kind of person where he's been respectful, and he's always reached out to those artists first to be like, hey, here's what I want to do. Are you okay with this? Cool, great. No, understandable. I'll let it go. And he's had a lot of situations like that.
Just blows my mind that Michael Jackson was like, yeah, go ahead, cover, beat it.
Well, I don't see why he wouldn't. Michael Jackson loved all the kind of stuff that was big in pop culture and anything that was going to help spread, any kind of fame towards his music, as well as helping other people out. And Weird Al was always awesome with so much stuff, man. Like so many good albums. 1986 Polka Party, 1984 Weird Al in 3D. I had the cassette from '85 Dare to Be Stupid. And I had so much different stuff, dude. Like he always had such great stuff, and with nobody else really doing that kind of thing, I think that was really good for as far as like pop culture scene at the time, and especially with a lot of the people who were really into that kind of music weren't exactly the popular kids. You know what I mean? So even though it didn't do great in the theaters because a lot of those kids were into it, might not want to go to the movie theaters because of the kids they might run into from school and stuff they might not get along with. So once it blew up in home theater with VHS, of course they're going to make the bread and butter because that makes it super accessible to everybody without having to go out and be in social scenes and be that weird kid out there that people are going to pick on. You said you just take it, go home, and enjoy the comedy and all the slapstick on your own or with your other weird friends without being, harangued by anybody, So I think that has some sense of cultural significance for that time. So 4.
How entertained were you?
Woo! I'm going with an 8. I like
Me
the 8.
too.
There's so much fun through the movie between the personal interactions, the story development, all the big scenes with the studio and the crowds and the kids and the people, even everybody getting together to save the station at the end. There was so much going on. There was always something. You always had a story with this character or a little bit with this character in little side bits as the story develops throughout the film, and just a lot of awesome action. I mean, how could you not enjoy all of that comedy unless you're just a total butthead? I mean, come on. Yes. There was so much fun to be had in that film for a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Yes. My wife had me watch Bill and Ted, the first one, and just the silly kind of stupid but smart humor at the same time. And I started watching this movie and I was like, if you like Bill and Ted, you'll like this movie too. It's not the same, but the comedy, like there's enough comedy there of a similar vein that there's no reason somebody who likes comedy, who appreciates clever writing, and it's clever comedy really through and through. There's some stupid humor in this, but there's a lot of clever humor. There's a lot of humor that you couldn't really do nowadays either.
Oh yeah.
But like the one that stands out to me as both clever and could not be done today is the supply closet scene towards the end.
Oh God.
But on second watch, I realized that he goes to that door and it says supplies on the outside of the door, and then he opens it and I'm like, oh my God. Like, it's just, you have to think of all those little details and then get it onto screen. And I think it's so funny. Or I would wrap up the comedy of this film into that trailer for Town Talk.
He starts where the others stop.
Sex with furniture. What do you think?
The world watched in amazement as he unlocked the mysteries of Al Capone's glove compartment.
Uh-huh. Road maps!
He blew the lid off Satanism.
Look, all I was trying to say...
Oh, shut up, you pinhead! You make me sick!
Sometimes shocking, always controversial, he deals with topics that the other talk shows are afraid to touch. He pries, he pokes, he digs deep. He gets the answers, he gets the facts, and most of all, he gets the ratings.
Lesbian Nazi hookers abducted by UFOs and forced into weight loss programs. All this week on Town Talk.
There were some moments that didn't really work for you, and there are moments that don't work for me. And I think that is the drawback to doing kind of sketch related films where it's a bunch of little segments because sometimes those little segments take me out and it takes me a second or two to get back into it. If I don't really care for that moment, then I kind of zone out and then I'll zone back in. And that happened on both watches for this movie at different times. It was like, oh, this time is clever. This time I'm But like the second watch, I zoned out for the Beverly Hillbillies music video. Didn't care for it that much. Zoned out. But there are some that are just brilliant, some that are good, some that are okay. And I think that's the problem in quotes with sketch. I think that's also the problem with anthology films where you have 3 or 4 stories in the same movie, is that when you have that, you're always going to have 1 or 2 better than the rest.
Some are going to be missed. Not every sketch is going to be a good one. It's not going to resonate with everybody. What are you going to do?
Exactly. And so that definitely affects this film, but not in like bringing it down to a 4 or a 5. This film is an 8 on entertainment value. It's still very entertaining. It's something I will put on again. It's something I might put on in the background. It's something that I'll put on when I'm with a crowd that, like, you know, I love my horror movies and I love my comic book movies. But if I'm with a crowd that isn't into those things, this movie might be pretty pleasing to comedy people. And it's one that I would go to for that. It's one that, you know, my wife and I don't always agree on movies, but she showed me Bill and Ted. I would show her this one. You know, I would show her this one. She might find some enjoyment in there. She also likes Seinfeld. So if you like Kramer, there's a lot of Kramer totally unhinged in this
Kramer
film.
pre-Kramer.
Yeah, pre-Kramer.
Pre-Kramer's prior to Seinfeld. So this is like pre-development for that character for Seinfeld in a way almost.
Yeah, it's 9 years. 8 or 9 years before Seinfeld was 1989. This was no,
it wasn't.
Yeah,
Seinfeld came in 89.
First season of Seinfeld was 89, I believe.
What? Oh, no way. No way.
I think so. Yeah, season 1 of Seinfeld was 89, so the same year.
Son of a bitch.
Which makes me wonder, like, Michael Richards looks way younger in this film than he does in even season 1 of Seinfeld.
What?
So it's very possible that this film could have been filmed a little bit before.
No way.
But yeah.
Seinfeld was 89. God.
What? Just blow your mind a little bit?
Yeah. What the? I could have swore like that started back in like 93, 94.
Nope. It was 89 to 98 was its run. Yeah.
God, Doug. Okay.
Yep.
Shows what the hell I know. Damn.
I've been going back and rewatching that for the first time, actually.
Golly. Oh, I need to correct myself as well. The martial arts guy, I called him Mr. Kim earlier. That was wrong. I misspoke. His name is Cooney. But I really like the scene from Wheel of Fish. Woman chooses the box instead of keeping her red herring.
I'll take the box! The box! You took the box! Let's see what's in the box! Nothing! Absolutely nothing! Stupid! You're so stupid!
Oh, you so stupid! Why are you so stupid? Oh, God. It's like, yeah.
It's I don't know when Deal or No Deal came out, but this is clearly Deal or No Deal. And there's nothing under that box. And I just wish Wayne Brady would be like, you're so stupid.
Oh, and great cameo, though. Also, Dr. Demento was in the film, which was like, he was like kind of a big role model for Weird Al when he started out.
Okay.
Dr. Demento was like one of the early big parody people that was like kind of well known, especially on like on the radio a lot back in the day, like throughout the 80s. I think maybe through like I think it was through the 70s and 80s because Dr. Demento had been around for a while. Like I used to hear his stuff on the radio when it come on the local station, and my mom would be like, "Oh my God, Dr. Demento, turn it up!" Woo! And we would just be chuckles listening to the crease. What? You never listened to Dr. Demento?
No, I've never heard of him.
Check out his stuff, man. It's old school, but it's fun comedy. Was it They're Coming to Get Me, I think is the song. They're coming to get me again. Hee hee. They're coming to get me again. Ha ha. Hee hee. Ho ho. To the funny farm.
I've heard that now that you do it, but I don't think I ever knew the name of who did it.
Yeah. So definitely check out his stuff. It's old, but it's still, I think it holds up to a degree. It was like his portrayal of Dr. Demento in like Weird Al's biography film. Have you seen that?
No, the one with Daniel Radcliffe?
Yes. I would still say watch it, but it loses track really hard halfway through.
Okay.
Like it loses track fucking hard. Oh my God. I was kind of disappointed with the second half of the film because of how convoluted it got. Because it's almost like trying to write too much comedy parody, like to relate to like being like UHF almost, even though it's been so long since that film. But first half of that film kicked ass. Second half, I was like, okay, you're losing me, man. You're losing me. I know it's a mockumentary biography kind of thing, but damn, you lost me hard on the second half, man. Wow.
Oh no. Yeah, I still need to see that one. I definitely want to see that one. I think it's probably the biggest movie Roku has released.
I was surprised it came out on Roku. I was like, oh wow, okay, all right.
Yeah. All right. So your total score, Jonathan, out of 50, where are we at?
Final score, 38. It's pretty rocking. It's a good time.
Yep. And my final score is close, 35. So altogether, we average 36.5, which puts it into the great category on our scale. So, and that would put it 36.5 would be a 3.5 star out of 5 is the way that would go.
Okay. I think that falls very fair.
So, yep, I think so too. I think it's almost a great time capsule of comedy from 1980s, early 90s. And it shows the genius that is Weird Al. And this is a younger, kind of wild Weird Al. This is him parodying film, commercials, TV, everything that he doesn't do in his music, or through his music, I should say.
Okay, yeah.
Because he talks about all that in his music. But this is him using sight gags. This is him using direct, the opening scene is a direct recreation of Raiders of the Lost Ark opening scene. Just parody version where he's going for the Academy Award instead. It's what I want, honestly, out of a Weird Al movie. So if you've listened to Weird Al and you're like, you know what, I wish Weird Al made a movie. Good news is he did. So this is where you go. This is what you look for. If you want a Weird Al film, this is it.
Yep. If you want your goofy, there it is. Chock full of it. Good times to be had. Parents, kids alike, anybody. This film could be for anybody. It's for all ages and everyone. So definitely throw it out there. Check it out. It really
is. It's a PG-13 rating. Maybe some of the young kids might be weirded out by the blood spurting out of people's wounds, but it's
cheap gaggy though, so it's not like that hard to.
No, it's definitely played for comedy. It doesn't look real. There's no reason why the family couldn't watch this. There's really not even sexual humor. It's not. No, it doesn't cross any lines. I'm kind of surprised by the PG-13 rating, to be honest.
Because some of the explosion and violent stuff, Oh,
I guess it pushes
the Rambo stuff and all the fighting at the Channel 8 station to get Stanley free and meh.
Okay, that's fair. I guess so, but I would show it to a 10-year-old.
And you got Conan splitting the kid in half, as well. So it's kind of a big thing.
That was one.
Yeah,
he's just red Jello inside. It's great. Yep, but it really is something you could put on with everybody. So. This was a little break. We've done a lot of horror films or heavy films lately, and this was a nice little breath of fresh air.
Yeah, lighten it up a little bit, Yeah.
Yep. It's kind of why you've seen a lot of movies, and I kind of rearranged. I was like, I want to do this one next. Let's have some levity.
A break here, a break here. Exactly.
All right. So let us know if you've watched UHF or if you're going to watch UHF after listening to this. Head over to the link tree in our Instagram and submit your review. We'll adjust the post so that it reflects what you say. If it changes the average, we'll throw your comments in. We want the audience to be part of this experience. That's why we have the scorecard out there for you to score it with us.
Score with us. Yeah.
Yes. We got comments on some of our YouTube videos, and that's awesome. Go to that scorecard and fill it out. Be a part of the conversation with us. We invite you to do that. So if you disagree with us, go to that scorecard and put it in there on why you disagree or why you agree. So
bring the heat. Tell us what's up.
Yes.
Do it.
Yes. We want you to be part of it. So thank you for joining us, Jonathan.
Keep it easy and squeezy.
All right. We will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one.
Peace.